Good evening. This is a primetime special report. We are coming on the air tonight, not with the sound of angry voices or slammed lecterns, but with something far more telling in the world of international power: the quiet, deliberate exit of a leader who decided he had nothing left to hear. The image you have likely already seen was captured by a single pool camera inside the Fairmont Chateau Laurier in Ottawa. Mark Carney, the former central banker, who now serves as Canada's Prime Minister, a man famous for his unshakable composure, rose from his seat. He adjusted his jacket. He pushed a document to the middle of a polished mahogany table, and then, without a raised eyebrow or any dramatic gesture, he walked out of a high-level bilateral trade summit with the United States. The American team, according to sources inside the room, sat completely still for 4 full seconds. In diplomatic terms, 4 seconds is an eternity. It felt like a judgment, because what unfolded was not a breakdown in negotiations, it was a lesson in leverage. And the message delivered in the span of a single breath is that the willingness to walk away is no longer a bargaining chip. It is a declaration of sovereignty. Let me pause here and bring this directly to you. This is not a story about people in suits sitting around a fancy table. This is about your job, the cost of the goods you buy, and the economic stability of millions of families on both sides of this border. After hearing what happened after watching a world leader stand up and leave without a single word of explanation in the room, would you have done the same thing? Or do you believe that walking out, no matter how justified, permanently closes the door to any future compromise? Take a moment and think about that. Share your thoughts in the comments section, because this conversation is only getting started. Now let us go back and piece together exactly how we arrived at this silent, seismic moment. The summit had been 6 weeks in the making. Washington requested it. The White House publicly billed it as the long-awaited chance to fix what many economists have called the most damaging trade dispute in North American history. On paper, the stakes were enormous. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, 417,000 American jobs depend entirely on two-way trade with Canada. These are not abstract numbers on a government spreadsheet. These are auto workers in Michigan who build engines that cross the border 3 times before becoming a finished car. These are energy workers in Ohio, corn and wheat farmers in Iowa who ship grain to Canadian mills, and logistics workers in Texas who move freight along the old NAFTA corridor. These are people who were told by their employers, their senators, and the White House itself that this summit represented the last best hope to repair a trade relationship worth nearly $700 billion every year. So the American delegation arrived with a 61-page document. Mark Carney read it for 9 minutes, then he got up and left. By doing so, we can report tonight he may have executed the single most devastating negotiating move in the history of this bilateral relationship. Within 6 hours, those 11 seconds of footage became the most watched diplomatic clip in internet history. Not a fiery speech, not a dramatic confrontation, not an exchange of insults, just a composed man leaving a room with the quiet finality of someone who has decided the conversation is no longer worth having. Warren Buffett, watching from Omaha, called it, and I quote, "the single most powerful negotiating move I have witnessed in 70 years of business." Then the Oracle of Omaha explained why. The ability to walk away is not a tactic, Buffett said. It is the definition of leverage. The side that cannot walk away has no power, no matter how large its economy or how loud its demands. That principle is now carved into the diplomatic history of this continent. And here is the uncomfortable truth that Washington is waking up to this morning. Carney could walk away because Canada, after 18 months of intense, deliberate, and largely unnoticed economic transformation, no longer needed to be at that table. The United States, on the other hand, needed the deal. And the American proposal, a document so unbalanced that even members of the US delegation reportedly flinched, was written as if the opposite were true. Let me be specific about what was inside that document, because the details matter. Our team has obtained a summary of the key American demands. First, the United States demanded 0 retaliatory tariffs from Canada within 30 days, while American tariffs would only phase down over 3 years. Second, full alignment of Canada's new trade agreements with Europe, Japan, South Korea, and India to American approval standards. Third, a joint oversight commission with an American chair and American veto power. Fourth, energy pricing rolled back to pre-conflict rates, even though Canada now commands higher prices from European and Asian buyers. Fifth, suspension of the commodity settlement framework, which is the parallel financial system designed to reduce global dependence on dollar-denominated trade. And finally, a public statement from Ottawa acknowledging what the White House called America's legitimate economic interest in Canadian trade policy. In plain language, this was surrender, complete unconditional surrender, offered in exchange for nothing except a partial rollback of tariffs that by every independent analysis have already hurt the United States more than Canada. Carney did not argue. He did not make a counteroffer. He did not ask for clarification or request a recess. He read, closed the folder, and departed. The finance minister and trade minister followed. The entire Canadian delegation was out of the room in less than 15 seconds. The silence they left behind was the real message. And the message was this: this proposal is not even worth responding to. 45 minutes later, Carney stood in front of cameras at the Canadian Parliament building. He spoke for just 3 minutes, the shortest public address of his entire time in office, and every word landed with surgical precision. He described what had been presented not as a proposal, but as a demand for capitulation. Then he looked directly into the camera, and in the quiet, almost serene tone of a man delivering a verdict that cannot be appealed, he said 8 words: "We didn't walk out, we moved on." Within 9 minutes, that phrase was trending worldwide. Within an hour, it was the headline of every major financial and political publication. The Financial Times called it 8 words that ended an era. The Economist described it as the walkout that proved Canada had already left. And that is the heart of the story that Washington still does not seem to grasp tonight. The walkout was not a temper tantrum. It was not a tactical bluff designed to extract better terms. It was a simple statement of fact. Canada has spent 18 months building an economy that no longer depends on American trade goodwill. New trade partnerships with the European Union, Japan, South Korea, and India are fully operational. New energy export routes, including liquefied natural gas terminals on both the Atlantic and Pacific coasts, are online. New financial infrastructure, including the commodity settlement framework that allows trading partners to bypass dollar-denominated settlements, is functioning. The diversification is not some future hope. It is a present reality. And as Carney made clear, Canada did not build those alternatives just to tear them down the moment Washington decided it was ready to talk. Now, let us talk about the human cost of this diplomatic collapse, because it is already happening. The American workers caught in the middle, those 47,000 men and women whose jobs depend on a trade relationship that now has no active diplomatic process to restore it, have become the immediate focus of political fury inside the United States. The governor of Michigan, whose state has the largest concentration of Canada-dependent manufacturing jobs, held a news conference within 3 hours of the walkout. His voice was controlled, but his anger was unmistakable. He said, and I quote, 417,000 American workers woke up hoping their government had sent a serious proposal. Their government sent a joke, a 61-page demand that Canada give up everything it has built and get nothing in return, except tariffs being maybe reduced in 3 years. Of course, Carney walked out. Anyone would walk out. My workers are going to pay the price for the arrogance of people in Washington who still think they can bully their way to an outcome when they no longer hold any cards. The governor of Ohio was even blunter. He said he has 41,000 workers in his state whose jobs depend on Canadian trade. The White House had one chance. He said, one summit, one opportunity, and they sent a proposal so insulting that the other side left the room in 9 minutes. Republican senators from affected states who had already broken with the White House on trade policy responded with anger that was more personal than any previous criticism. A senator from Iowa said he had spent 6 months telling his farmers a negotiated resolution was coming. He told them to hold on, and now he learned that the proposal sent was so